I know at least one person does hate us for showing that, but that's going to happen. That's how we know we're doing our jobs, right?
If you don't know who he is, you've seen him in 100 movies. He's that guy that makes you think he might be Jack Nicholson's stoned cousin.
When this came out, I was a little skeptical. This movie kicks ass.
It really does.
And welcome. We are back for Fright Club Live at Gateway Film Center in Columbus, Ohio. Welcome.
Yay.
In front of another great Gateway crowd. And just minutes ago, well, by the way, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And we are from madwolf.com. And just minutes ago on the way in here, we got Fright Clubber number 1. John gave us a great piece of news.
It's our 8th anniversary.
8 years.
We did our first Fright Club Live, January of 2014. We showed Severance.
And
that's how we kicked it off.
John, it was a blizzard, wasn't it?
It was a blizzard.
The weather was horrible.
It was horrible.
And we had John and 3 other people show up, something like that. But it started us on our way.
It did.
And that's great. 8 years of it, and it's only gotten more fun thanks to you guys. So this episode tonight is fun, first of all, because we had a great happy hour. Thanks to all the great swag we got for the new Scream movie from Allied.
Yes.
Alexa and the team at Allied, and they're here tonight. Thank you so much. We got a bunch of shirts and stickers for Scream, the brand new movie that comes out. Well, as we tape this, it comes out tomorrow.
Yes.
Right? And we got to see it the other night.
We did. We loved it.
You're going to have a ball.
You are. You're going
really
to have
are.
a ball. I mean, if you're a fan of this franchise, it's everything. It's like everything that the franchise ever did well. It's so much fun. It's just an absolute blast.
And it's bloody.
It is bloody.
It's really bloody. I know that seems kind of funny to say because they've all been bloody and are, but this one was bloodier than I expected, really. So, yeah, you're going to have a ball with it. Go see Scream, and again, thanks for all the swag, and congrats to everybody that won. And also, I know we had some people come to Happy Hour that didn't get a button. We got plenty down here. If you want to grab a button, come on down. We'll give you one. And also, as usual, when we do a Fright Club Live, come on down after the movie and give us your thoughts, because I'm going to really be interested in what you think of this one as we talk about addiction horror.
Yes. But before we get into that, I want to thank everybody who commented on last. So the last one was the best horror movies of 2021. And we didn't get a lot of complaints. We did not get a lot of complaints. and as I said in our podcast, I expected us to because we did not care for Malignant. So it did not make our list. And I thought people are going to be so mad about that. But no, actually, Seth made a great point. We forgot to even mention the Fear Street series.
And we did enjoy that.
Very much.
We really did.
If nothing else, the soundtracks, those soundtracks, especially from the 1990s one, that soundtrack was the best.
Yeah, really
they
enjoyed.
Were super fun. How did
we forget to mention that?
I don't know. Melissa loved both number 1 and 2. She was all on board with that. And Richard agreed about Candyman and Titane.
Yeah, because number 1 was St. Maud and number 2 was Candyman.
Yes.
So that's solid.
Yeah, that's very solid. And then Wiener and Richard picked up Psycho Gorman based on our recommendations.
Psycho Gorman.
So,
that's
a great movie.
Just a ton of fun.
That's the most fun. That is such a fun movie.
All right, so we're talking about addiction horror, and this was one I know we talked about last time that this was supposed to be the horror movies that are old enough to drink. But right now with the the movie atmosphere, the movie situation with distributors and stuff is a little bit upended, so we couldn't get any of the movies that we were hoping to show, and that's it's going to happen in the world events that we're living through right now. But we were able to get this movie tonight, so we had to pivot and pick a new subject, and Hope was right on it.
Yeah, this is a movie that we had always been interested in showing. It's Abel Ferrara, who's an incredibly bizarre and fascinating filmmaker. All of his movies, even though some of them I don't care for, I see everything he does. I'm always going to watch anything Abel Ferrara does. And this one is black and white, and it's just gorgeous. And the cast, my God, the cast in this movie, including, of course, Christopher Walken, who doesn't show up for a while, and when he does, it's like, pow! So we're not going to talk too much about it, of course, but we're excited to get to show it.
It's sort of fitting that it's black and white because we talked about a lot toward the end of last year how the year in cinema last year in all genres, one of the prevailing themes was black and white movies.
Yeah, there are some gorgeous black and white movies.
Yeah, so it seems very appropriate that we're doing a black and white movie tonight. So anyway, that is how we got on the topic, and we are definitely going to do movies that are old enough to drink probably next time. When we do the studio version next time out. But
there are a lot. I mean, a horror movie's often, especially like sort of a monster movie. They'll take a monster movie and it'll become a metaphor for something, and addiction is a pretty common metaphor for horror movies. There are a couple that are just, I say, thrillers more than horror that are worth mentioning. Bug. Oh my God, that is such a great movie, and it's all about addiction, and it is well worth seeing. Naked Lunch, that's even better. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen Naked Lunch, what up? Watch Naked Lunch right away. There's another one, Toad Road, which you'll know like 10 minutes in. If you hate it, don't watch the rest of it. But I mean, because it definitely has a specific vibe that it never shakes. If you hate it in the first 10 minutes, don't finish it. But I enjoyed it. So those are the ones that are not really horror. Some of the other ones that are really worth watching, Lovely Molly. If you haven't seen that is a great one. We Are the Flesh. You probably saw it here, and if you don't hate me because we showed it here, thank you. But
I know at least one person does hate us for showing that, but that's going to happen. That's how we know we're doing our jobs, right? Also, Bliss, which a lot of people liked a few years ago.
Yeah, Bliss is a good one. Kronos, which is much more metaphorical, but I think it's a brilliant, incredible, great.
And even there's a lot of a theme of addiction in Dr. Sleep.
Right, alcoholism, for sure.
Yeah, which is well worth seeing. So those are a few to mention. And also one that almost made the list because it's so much about addiction, but we just couldn't call it horror, was Requiem for a Dream.
Right.
I know. You're groaning because it's such a happy-go-lucky love story, isn't it?
That's the thing. It really is. To me, it's a horror film. I mean, I'm horrified by that film. I'm horrified by that film.
Yeah, you could certainly make that case. But we went with another one, which is comes in at number 5, which is sort of the same but a little bit more horrific. And this is from 2009 on our top 5 of addiction horror. This is an American drug dealer living in Tokyo. He's betrayed by his best friend and killed in a drug deal. His soul, observing the repercussions of his death, seeks resurrection. Enter the Void. Well, this is from that mischievous scamp Gaspar Noé. And I remember when I first saw this back when we were writing for the other paper, and it was a daytime screening. And it was me and 6 or 7 other critics in this big theater. I think it was here at the Gateway. And this is such a punishing film. I mean, very few films make me feel physically beaten up by the end. But I remember when it was over, there was just this silence, and I just said loudly from the back row, "Look, we can't all use the phrase feel-good movie of the year, okay?" And nobody laughed at that line. Because this is just so punishing, but is so steeped in addiction. And it's all subjective camera from the point of view of the main character. And Gaspar Noé has said that he saw the movie Lady in the Lake from 1946 when he was in his early 20s that is shot that way. And it had such a big effect on him that he does the same thing with this movie with the character Oscar. As he dies, he's shot in this drug raid, and then the camera just floats throughout all these different scenarios and set pieces. And some of them are just very, very depraved. I mean, if you haven't seen penis vision or vaginorama shots, you'll see him in this movie. And it has these just, as Gaspar Noé likes to do, these extended, way too long scenes. One of them very reminiscent of all the entering the black hole in 2001, with just the colors. It just goes on and on and on. For my money, and I'm a fan of Gaspar Noé, I like to see everything he does, this one is just a bit too self-absorbed. It just goes on for so long, and sometimes it's excess for the sake of excess.
Because it's also over 3 hours long.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about Gaspar Noé. I mean, you need to get a medal if you can sit through, and I also think he's a brilliant filmmaker, but to sit through it for 3 hours, that is punishing. We go back and forth as to which is the more horrifying, punishing film, this one or Irreversible. Irreversible is the most difficult film I've ever watched, ever.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's not a happy-go-lucky.
The thing about Irreversible is it's really just those 2 scenes.
You know what? I'll take that one scene over everything else he's ever done.
I got you. It's really nasty. And this one has it just throughout the entire movie. But anyway, it's so steeped in addiction that we had to put it on the list. Gaspar Noé himself describes it as a psychedelic melodrama. I might go a little bit deeper than that, but that is 2009. If you haven't seen it and want to experience it for yourself, get ready. That is Enter the Void.
Gird your loins.
Moving up to, exactly. Moving up to number 4. This is from 1995, and it's set in a gritty, real-life New York City as alcoholic Sam meets up with a modern-day succubus who marks him and controls his will. As his world unravels, he slowly figures out what is happening and has to figure out what to do. This is called Habit.
From New York filmmaker Larry Fessenden, director of underground classics, experienced movers, The Rocket Movie, Hollow Venus, and No Telling. Comes a tale of love and delirium under New York's autumn nights.
Aren't you gonna invite me in?
Listen, I'm in trouble.
Sam! What has transpired between you and Anna that's making you so crazy?
Let me tell you this, man. Habit. See it in a darkened theater.
I love Larry Fessenden. I'm a massive, massive fan. If you don't know who he is, you've seen him in 100 movies. He's that guy that makes you think he might be Jack Nicholson's stoned cousin. I love this movie as well, and it's actually incredibly similar, I think, to The Addiction, the movie we're going to show today. So if you sort of took The Addiction and drained it of all of its pretension, you would have The Habit. And I don't mean that as a knock, but you'll see it. You'll understand what I mean when you watch it. I think that this movie is, and it is about alcoholism. And it's one of, I think, the very best metaphorical films on alcoholism that you'll find. And also one of the things that I love about it is it's so clearly made on no money that, for one thing, Larry Fessenden, he had lost several of his teeth. And he couldn't afford to get it fixed. So inexplicably, the romantic lead in this movie is missing some of his front teeth. It's very funny, but it goes with the character who is just not really taking good care of himself.
Yeah, Larry Fessenden, you're right. He's always a favorite. This movie, as you might guess with the budget, was shot in 45 days over a 3-month period. And I loved in that trailer, and that's really it's kind of a weird trailer. It's the only trailer we could find.
Yeah, it's very strange.
But as film critics, I love that they quote so many film critics.
I know.
I mean, that's maybe an inside joke. But, yeah, Larry Fessenden he's such an interesting character. He does remind you of Jack Nicholson. He reminds you of somebody. Is he doing a Jack Nicholson impression? But he's really not.
No.
He's able to carve out his own persona. And most of the time, he's an actor here, but here he's both the writer and the director.
Yeah, he is. And actually, almost all of the films that he has made are really very much worth seeing. I mean, I think he's a fascinating sort of underground, not even just indie, but underground filmmaker. But I think most people agree this is his best film.
And this is from 1995, Habit, number 4 on our list of addiction horror. And, we got to get moving. Let's move up to number 3. This is the one we're going to show tonight, also from 1995. A New York philosophy grad student turns into a vampire after getting bitten by one, and then tries to come to terms with her new lifestyle and frequent craving for human blood. It is The Addiction.
You can never get enough, can you? But you learn to control it. You learn, like the Tibetans, to survive on a little.
There is a dual nature to the addiction. It satisfies the hunger, which evil engenders. But it also dulls our perception, so we are helped to forget how ill we really are. We drink to escape the fact we're alcoholics.
We're not evil because of the evil we do, but we do evil because we are evil.
What would you like to confess?
God, forgive me.
I think, as you rightly already pointed out, this sort of metaphor is nothing new for horror movies, but I'm always interested if Abel Ferrara's name is attached to it, because if you've seen any of his movies, he can go there, unapologetically.
Yes, and this is very definitely an Abel Ferrara movie, and it's just, I mean, the cast is crazy great, as I said, and we're not going to talk a lot about the movie, but it's set in 1995, and I know for a lot of people, I don't know, Pearl Jam is 95 to Nirvana, maybe Scream is 1990s. Lily Taylor is the 90s to me, and she just personifies the 90s for me in this movie. I love her so much. But it's not just her. I mean, the whole cast is great, and it's so funny because with her run-in on the streets with Annabella Sciorra always makes me think of Vampire's Kiss with Nicolas Cage and Jennifer Beals, and which is the opposite film from this. It's the opposite
yes, it is.
film from this, but it's both of them are just such great movies about vampires that it makes me happy anytime anything reminds me of vampires.
And sharp-eyed Sopranos fans are going to notice Edie Falco, Michael Imperioli, and Annabella Sciorra all in this movie.
Right.
How many people have seen it already?
Oh,
One. Nice. I love that.
I do too.
I love that.
Oh,
well,
yay.
Be sure to come down after, please. I'd love to get your comments on the podcast of what you think when we're done here. That is fantastic. We've got mostly a house full of people that haven't seen it yet. So we'll just move on because we don't want to spoil a thing.
Nope.
82 minutes later.
Raise your hand if you've seen any other Abel Ferrara film. This is an Abel Ferrara film. It for sure is.
It is. It strikes me as a little more thoughtful than something like Bad Lieutenant. It's certainly draped in a lot more philosophy. First of all, it's striking. We've talked about black and white right from the opening minutes. It's striking what he does with light.
Yes. When Annabella Sciorra attacks her in the little alleyway there.
Beautiful.
Oh, that looks gorgeous.
Yeah, it's got multiple metaphors going on. Obviously, you've got the addiction and the
also war.
The blood.
That's a big
one.
Yeah,
but it's very clearly drawing a correlation between the bloodlust of vampires and the bloodlust of mankind.
Yeah.
With all the Holocaust references and the deeply seated philosophies. Which gets a little more overt toward the end. But it's really interesting. I think for him, I found it very thoughtful for one of his films.
Well, I think the first thing that's clear is that it's the third in those great Christopher Walken sort of extended cameos from the 90s with True Romance and Pulp Fiction. It's just he shows up halfway through the movie and just steals the entire thing with just that swagger and cool that Christopher Walken had. It's like maybe the only guy in middle age that had that sort of swagger and cool. So I love that for one. And the second it feels like for Ferrara's filmography, it feels like a really transition point from that sort of more grindhousey type of, grimy crime / grindhouse film that he was known for doing into more of those thoughtful, movies that he ends up doing more now, like, Pasolini and things like that.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I think that I think this was really the first film that was a transition for him from things like Ms. 45 and Driller Killer, but also it is the same screenwriter. It's the same. He worked with the same writer until I think 2010, and I think that they moved nicely from, as you say, grindhouse, and then they kind of moved into like crime dramas. But this was the first one that was, I feel like, very similar to the same kinds of really loose, almost sort of hypnotic narratives that he's doing now, even with a completely different screenwriter. And it is, as you said, George, a lot more thoughtful, I think, than most of what we had seen before this. He had already done Bad Lieutenant, which was maybe sort of the high water mark for him, except for me, because Harvey Keitel reminds me of my dad, so that movie was really traumatic for me. But but I love so much about this movie.
Also, am I wrong? Is this the first time I can remember Christopher Walken's hair being in his face? Right?
A lot. It was in his face a lot.
It was. Normally, it's crazy up in the air, but it almost looked like a wig there at the end when it was hanging in his face.
Well, it's a thinker. It makes you, if you go in for straight horror, it's not your cup of tea. But if you go in wanting to really think about it and interpret everything, yeah, it's what you want because it throws a lot of ideas at you. So it takes a while to absorb it all. The co-star of the movie is New York City.
Yeah, it really is. It's very much in New York, as a lot of his films are. One of the things I like, again, I mean, it reminds me of a lot of other films that came later. Society, that's probably a weird movie to compare this to.
No.
But the party after the PhD, it always has. It reminds me so much of Society.
Okay, I'm going to be the fly in the ointment here. I thought it looked great. I thought it looked wonderful, 100% in. I thought all the actors are great. Me personally, I thought all the philosophy stuff was very heavy-handed and almost laughable.
It was. I agree with you. It was, as I said, where it's very pretentious, and I think the first time I saw it, I thought it was a comment on that, right? Like, we want all these people to die, and then the more Ferrara films like post Driller Killer that I saw, the more I thought, oh, I think that's kind of him. I think maybe he's kind of really super pretentious. So now it's almost like, aw, like now it's almost like adorable to me. But it's funny, like the gamut that I ran, because originally I thought this is a comment on dumbass, annoying PhD candidates, and then now I don't think it was.
Yeah, I agree, especially toward the last act, I would say. But I think you make a good point, because especially toward the end, it gets a little bit too heavy.
I think they also kind of tried to lean heavily into, is this actually happening? Is this a dream? Is it the person died at the beginning and this is all afterwards? It really leaned heavily into that to try to fool you into thinking one way or the other.
A particular brand of horror film I really like are the ones where you don't know the whole film whether or not the lead character is dead. And you know, you don't get that in like rom-coms. Like, that's exclusively really the territory of horror films.
Well, and anytime drug abuse is involved, then you have an unreliable narrator as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a fun sort of exploration in this one. And I also love how, you know, her first victim, out of nowhere, she has a syringe. I don't know where she got the syringe, right? But, you know, she's just drunk, passed out, homeless guy. He's going to be fine. Like, I actually like that. And then later on, she thought, fuck it. I'm just going to tear the throat out of my professor. Mm-hmm. Who hasn't wanted to do that? I like how it works out. And then at the end, you know, at the party, they're all there except the homeless guy, because he's apparently fine. I mean, as fine as you can be as a homeless guy in New York. But I appreciate that.
Yeah, that party went off the rails.
It did.
Good comments, though. That is number 3 from 95, The Addiction. Moving up to number 2. Boy, we've talked about this a few times. From 2013, 5 friends head to a remote cabin where the discovery of a Book of the Dead leads them to unwittingly summon up demons living in the nearby woods. The 2013 version of Evil Dead.
You are all going to die tonight.
I read a passage from that book.
Oh my God! Why did you do that?
We're gonna get you, not another pee. Time to go to sleep.
It's interesting. We were talking a little bit earlier in Happy Hour about the times when Hope and I disagree on movies. And even though I love Bruce Campbell, I'm not the biggest fan of the original Evil Dead 1 and 2.
Not the biggest fan. One of us loves all Evil Dead movies.
So when this came out...
One of us loves one.
When this came out, I was a little skeptical. This movie kicks ass.
It really does. No.
I love this movie. I mean, it's so bloody, obviously, but I just think he does everything right about rebooting or reigniting this franchise. I loved it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's great. A lot of Die Hard fans did not, and I am a Die Hard fan, so I'm not sure why that is. I thought this was a crazy great movie. We had no idea how great a director Fede Alvarez was until this, and of course he went on to do the Don't Breathe films.
Yeah.
With star Jane Levy. And Mia, that's the sort of overarching concept here, is not just a bunch of buddies who go into, you know, spend the weekend in a cabin from Michigan State, but they're going because Mia needs to spend some time to help her get over her addiction. And so that really, to me, it gives the whole film a much better vehicle for every crazy ass thing that happens. Mm-hmm. I love the way that they reconceptualize all the sort of touchstones from the film series, because the film series has always done that. Evil Dead 2 is really just a remake of Evil Dead with an extra character in it. That's really all it is. So I love that they took that same concept. They just kept sort of reworking the same ideas, but with this new kind of strategy, this new sort of vehicle for why they were there and why this was going on. And also an uncredited Diablo Cody, Oscar-winning screenwriter Diablo Cody. I think helped a great deal in making this movie as just pithy and fun as it was.
And I think if you watch it, especially if you watch it more than once, you can sort of pick out, I bet that.
She wrote that.
Yeah, certain things have a Diablo Cody kind of ring to them. But and can we get an amen for mostly practical effects as well? Love them. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, it makes such a difference. And I thought this movie just blew me away.
It rained blood.
It did.
I don't know what more you want.
It did. Evil Dead from 2013. Loved it. All the blood. It did. It rained blood.
Yep.
And is that a bad thing? So
Never.
That's number 2 on our list of addiction horror. Moving up to number 1. This is from 2012, and it's from a couple of our favorite filmmakers who've come out here just in the last 10 years. A man imprisons his estranged junkie friend in an isolated cabin in the boonies of San Diego to force him through a week of sobriety. But the events of that week are being mysteriously manipulated. It's Resolution.
Dude, you keep coming here with these recordings and these stupid stories about how you found them, and you're acting weird.
I think someone might be messing with us.
Maybe you have split personalities and you're leaving each other gifts for you to find.
Did you see that?
See what?
What?
That.
That's satellites. They watch everything.
What's going on, Mike?
If there is something, it is none of these things.
We need to leave before they get here. What would convince you that I'm not crazy?
We showed this one. I love this movie.
Yeah.
I love these guys, as you said, Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead.
Yep.
And they've done 2 films that are really just about drug use, this one and also Synchronic, which I don't like as well as their other films. They also did The Endless, which is more or less kind of a sequel. It's in the same universe as this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And they did Spring, which is like a creature feature. Watch it. Anyway, they're great.
I remember this is one of the last movies I reviewed for the other paper before they shut it down back in the days of newspapers, kids. And I went in absolutely cold. Didn't know. Just review this movie called Resolution. Just cold. And this movie really, really impressed me on where it went. And, of course, it starts with, they have to dry this guy out by chaining him up. And I was surprised how funny it was as well. It's very funny.
It is incredibly funny, especially the character that gets chained up.
Yeah.
And it turns into something a lot more than a story about sort of a drug intervention, but that is how it starts. And I think that in a lot of these films, it's the idea of drug use, like in Midsommar. The idea of drug use makes you understand why the characters are so slow to pick up on how fucked up everything is. You know, it's like, or I'm just high and I'm not really understanding these things very well. And I think that they use that to great effect here because you've got the 2 characters, one who just keeps sort of telling the other guy he's wrong, and one who's like, no, I'm totally sober and this is definitely not supposed to happen right now. But I think they make great use of that sort of pairing in this movie.
And then since we were just talking about Evil Dead, if you look closely, a hand-drawn picture of the front cover of the Necronomicon can be seen hanging on the wall right to the right of the mattress.
Well, that just makes beautiful art.
It does. But it gets, even though it is funny early on because he says such funny things to try to deal with the situation of being chained up, the more it goes on, it gets really creepy.
Very creepy.
When they start
creepy.
seeing on the video, they start seeing the things that are going to happen, and someone's watching them, and someone can tell the future. And then the guy from the neighboring village comes in, and then the whole thing is just very, very creepy, leading to a really startling and, for me, unexpected finale.
Yes.
I think. And then, of course, as you mentioned, if you've seen The Endless, that one draws into this universe in a very, very cool and clever way. So, yeah. Even though I agree,
and sad kind of a sad way,
yeah. Even though I agree, Synchronic was sort of a little bit of a step back. Didn't enjoy it as much. Still, always look forward to what these guys, Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, are going to do.
Yep.
And we definitely showed this one and enjoyed it a few years ago. Resolution number 1 on our list of addiction horror, and we're up against the clock, so let's get at it.
We're clearly late.
Yeah, we are. So we're going to show we're going to show the addiction, and please, since almost everyone has not seen it, please come down afterwards. I want to get your reactions, incorporate that into the podcast.
And if you wear a size medium, let us know.
Yeah, yeah, we do have some Scream some Scream T-shirts, and we have some buttons too. If you haven't got a button, come down. But as we said, next time out, it's going to be the studio recording, the studio version of Fright Club, and we're going to do horror movies that are old enough to drink.
That's right.
So that'll be in a couple of weeks, but this podcast will be all edited and ready to roll probably on Monday. So look for it on your usual outlets. You can find us, of course, always keep the conversation going. You can find us on Twitter. It's @FrightClubPod. And Instagram and Facebook, we're at Mad Wolf Columbus. And the main website is madwolf.com. So enjoy the movie. And until next time, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.